that we have coming up that everyone might be interested in. So our next meeting is going to be February 17th. That is 2 weeks from today. The theme of that meeting is actually the President's Panel. So what that meeting is going to be is it's going to be a ton of past PRSSA presidents that are going to come and speak to us and talk about how their time in PRSSA has shaped their careers. And then we're also going to learn about where former PRSSA members have gone after graduation. So we're going to have a panel of past presidents. We also are going to host our election for PRSSA president for next year on the 17th. So if anyone is interested in running for president, talk to me. We are going to be hosting elections on February 17th as well. I also want to let you know, keep you updated on some stuff that we have coming up this semester that would really benefit all of you. So on March 17th, our Vice President of PRaction, Sarah, is going to be putting together a speed networking event virtually for everyone. So we will definitely get more information about speed networking out as it comes, but we are going to be hosting a speed networking event on March 17th. This is going to be where we invite working professionals in to come and meet you all. And, you have the opportunity to give working professionals your resumes and speak to them and, really network with some people in the field. I also want to let you guys know that this semester we are going to be recruiting for executive board positions for next year. And, maybe this is your first PRSSA meeting. That's okay. Anyone is encouraged and welcomed to show interest in being on our e-board for next year. We will have more information for that coming as well. However, if you already know, hey, I'm interested in being on e-board next year, you can shoot me an email. I will leave my email in the chat at some point during this meeting. So keep that in mind that we are looking for e-board members for next year, if that's something that you're interested in. We also are looking for writers for Promo, which is our monthly newsletter. You can honestly write about any topic that you want, and it doesn't have to be anything too extensive, maybe 200 to 300 words. So that's a great thing to put on your resume. If you're interested in writing for Promo, reach out to myself or Liz Kratz, who is our Promo editor. If Liz could drop her email in the chat, and you can reach out to her to write for Promo. Now, it also isn't required, but if you are interested in becoming a dues-paying member of PRSSA, that would mean that you are officially affiliated with PRSSA National. Benefits of joining PRSSA as a dues-paying member is you get access to their internship base that they have. Our chapter of PRSSA is also going to be giving out honor cords to dues-paying members that are graduating in May this year. And we also are going to be attending some virtual conferences coming up in the end of February, March, April. So if those are opportunities that interest you, I would consider becoming a dues-paying member, and I will leave more information about that in the chat as we go along. And now I'm going to pass the meeting over to Dave, and we are going to hear from our guest speaker for tonight.
Hi, everyone. So thank you for coming to our first general meeting of the year. We're very fortunate to have Matt Santos here. He is the Vice President of University Relations and Athletics at the University of Kutztown. I just have a list of questions, and then I'll leave some room after if anybody else has any questions. So pretty straightforward. So I'm ready whenever you are. So I'm just going to ask you the first question to start. Can you provide a quick description of who you are and what sparked your interest in a career in public relations?
Sure, David. Everyone hear me okay? Good. Thank you for inviting me. It's quite an honor to spend some time with my alma mater and the PRSSA in particular. I see that you have the chair of your department on here, which is exciting, and I know that you guys are still doing great things in the PR major. We just added the PR major here at Kutztown, and my youngest son is actually a sophomore in the program, so we're excited about that. So, yeah, to answer your question, David, how did I get here? I mean, gosh, I don't. You want me to go back to my days at Glassboro State, actually, or where'd you like me to pick up?
Anywhere you want. You can start from whenever.
Yeah, so the story is kind of interesting. First generation college student. I went to high school in Delaware. I remember March of 1984 coming to a tour over on campus, and it was a real rainy, cold day, but I heard a commercial on the campus radio station, WGLS, and was so excited about the kind of music that they were playing. And I felt, while most of my friends went to University of Delaware, I felt it just kind of an attachment to the campus. It felt very homey to me, and it felt much more comfortable at the time than University of Delaware was. Um, the other thing is I also got accepted to Rowan as a marketing major. Again, being a first generation student, I had no idea at the time what public relations was. My dad was a vice president for an air cargo company over in Philadelphia. So I thought, you know what, he's got a pretty cool job. I'll get into marketing. I love sports. I was a sports nut since I was, gosh, probably about 8 years old. In fact, one of my earliest sports memories, and you all heard that Hank Aaron passed away last week. I remember when Hank Aaron hit the record-setting home run that broke Babe Ruth's record. I was living outside of Atlanta at the time, and so it was a big loss to lose him last week. But was always a huge sports fan. I loved football. I ran cross country and track in high school. Had no idea that I would ever be able to work in sports. Always wanted to be on TV in some capacity if I could. But you know, I didn't know if I could make a living doing that. So I came over. I started in the marketing program. Had an awful schedule my freshman year. I lived in Mimosa Hall, which I know is still there. I lived there for 2 years. And I struggled a lot my first year because I was in classes that did not fit. I was always very good at writing, and which you all know in PR, you know, you have to be good at writing. That's the number one strength that you have to have in public relations, I believe, more than anything. But marketing was more analytical. There were math classes, and to cut a long story short, I get to my sophomore year. I was over in Robinson, and I'm in calculus. And the professor, we got about 3 weeks in. She said, our first test is tomorrow, and today is the last day. You can go over to the registrar and drop the class if you're not sure that you want to continue. And I was pretty convinced I was getting a 0 on the test, because I'll be honest with you guys, I've never been able to add letters. It's never made sense to me. So I went over to the registrar. I dropped the class, and I said, what am I going to do now? I was on a bus trip to Washington, D.C., and talking to one of my classmates, who said to me, you know, Matt, you ought to look at public relations. It's sort of like marketing, but it doesn't have all the math, and it's in the communications department. And I started as a freshman at Glassboro as a cross country runner. So I ran a year. I was not cut out to be a college athlete. And I made the decision after I stopped running to join WGLS. It would give me an opportunity to really be a training ground, to be a sports announcer, to do a music show. So it all sort of added up to me, and I changed my major as a sophomore. I found out that it was my niche. It's interesting as I see the makeup now. I was one of the only guys in the major back in, we're talking like 1986 to 88. So I thought the makeup by now would it's the same here at Kutztown. It's very heavily female influenced, the profession. So I stayed a member of WGLS. I was the sports director as a junior. I then got into the big PR major classes. The names that you guys have heard, I had as professors: Anthony Fulginiti, Don Bagan. There were a couple professors, and Dr. Fitzgerald, I know you would probably be able to help me out on this, but I think I saw a few on your list that I may have had. Ed Moore was my advanced PR writing teacher. And the other thing that I did was I really took related courses in communications that would help me in PR. Because I loved radio and television, I took TV production, I took radio production. In my junior year, I got the opportunity working with your current sports communications director, Sheila Stevenson, who started there in 1985. She approached me and said, "Hey, Matt, would you be interested in an internship in our office as a senior?" Wasn't sure. I thought, hey, it's a chance to work in sports. There was a little, at the time, there was a little debate over whether or not sports information actually applied as a public relations field. Sports information is basically the publicist, the publicity office for the NCAA sports teams at a college or university. Not only do they do the publicity, the press releases, but they keep the records, they do the stats, they do the publications. It was right up my alley, to be honest. So I did a 9-credit internship my senior year with your sports information office. Never joined PRSSA. I was very aware of the success of the group, but because I was so ingrained in WGLS and with my internship, my schedule was pretty full. It's a regret I have. I really do wish I had been a part of it, because I see the parent organization, PRSSA, does so much. So I commend you all for being active, and encourage you to be active in as many communication groups as you can be. So that led to graduation in 1988 with a degree in communications public relations. I searched for jobs. The job market was tough. I was too stubborn to take a graduate assistantship, which I was offered at Westchester. I was offered the ability to stay at Glassboro, but I felt like I wanted to move on. You're 22 years old, and it's time. You've had your education. It's time for a job, right? You don't need a master's degree, and I'll tell you guys about that in a moment. So I went in November of 1988. I saw an opening for a resident counselor at a school called Lincoln University in Chester, Pennsylvania. They brought me up for an interview, and I had no idea. I'd never worked in the residence halls, but I said, you know what? It might give me a chance to work in their sports information office. Let me see what it's all about. I went up there. I drive on campus, and we could talk about that a little bit more, because I know David want to get into that. There was a historical marker that said Lincoln University, the first historically Black college and university in the country. And even though I was from Delaware, where Delaware State was pretty well known, I had no idea what an HBCU was. I soon realized when I got on campus that I was a minority for the first time in my life. Not that I wasn't used to diversity between track and my time at Rowan, and desegregation, which we had when I was in middle school, and had no issues with it, but I had never truly been the one minority on a campus. So I thought, my chances here of managing 3 upper-class male dorms at a historically Black college, are they really going to give me that opportunity? Well, they did. And I also found out that they didn't have a sports information director on campus, so I volunteered to do that. That opened the door 7 months later for a sports information director job at Delaware State University in Dover, Delaware. And at 23 years old, I was the sports publicist for a 15-sport Division I program, and I was scared out of my wits. But I did that for 3 years, and then the opening came here at Kutztown. I was getting married that summer. My wife is a Rowan grad. She has a degree in radio, television, film. We saw the chance for me to travel a lot less, so to come to a school that was a lot more like Glassboro or Rowan. I took the sports information director job here at Kutztown in 1992. I did it for 6 years. I was promoted to handle all external relations in 1998. And then 2006, some changes happened in my life where I said, you know what, maybe these nights and weekends are kind of getting old. Maybe it's time to actually get into general news, public relations, and prove everybody that thinks that a sports guy can't do news is wrong. Now, let me also throw out at you guys, in 1999, I had a job offer for my dream job, which was the external executive director for external relations at the Patriot League, which is I think it's an 8 or 9 sport athletic conference, not too far from where I am now. But I felt something was missing, and the thing that was missing working in higher education was an advanced degree. So I turned down the job and immediately enrolled in graduate school, and I got my master's degree in electronic media, which is basically radio, television, film on steroids. um, it was great. It took me 4 years to do it because I waited. Like, when I was 22, when I should have done it, I didn't. But I always figured, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to do with it when I get it, but no one can take a degree away from you. So I got my degree. And then I moved over to the public relations side. I started as media relations director in charge of the news for the university. And then 2007, I was promoted to director of university relations, overseeing the web, publications, periodicals, and sports information. And then in 2017, my boss retired. They made the president here asked me to be the interim vice president for university relations and athletics, which kind of combined all of my past. And I was named the permanent vice president in 2017. So I currently oversee 10 departments at the university. Kutztown is, I don't know how familiar you are with Pennsylvania, but we are between Allentown and Reading, about an hour and 20 minutes northwest of Philadelphia. So if you like to ski, we're not far from Bear Creek Mountain, from Blue Mountain, from Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. It's a beautiful location, a little colder than New Jersey, but in my current role, we have 8,000 students, 4 colleges, undergraduate and graduate school. We just started offering EDDs and Doctor of Social Work. But I have marketing, communications, the web. I have intercollegiate athletics, recreational services, which is rec and club sports. I have the Performing Artists Series, government relations. I have a very unique department known as the Pennsylvania German Cultural Heritage Center, which is actually a museum that promotes the region's heritage. I have the university operators. Of course, I'm in charge of crisis communications. It goes on and on. There's about 75 people in the division. Never wanted to be a vice president, guys. Never thought I would be a vice president. I was an introvert as a PR major. It's probably one of the reasons I wasn't in PRSSA. But I think one of the things I've always said is that, as PR professionals, it's our job to talk about everybody else. So maybe that's a good thing. Now, as you see, I've mixed my experience. I did play-by-play for 20 years for Kutztown football on pretty significant AM radio station here in the area. I've done a lot of TV, so versatility has helped me through my career. So I know that's a long answer, David, and I hope I didn't jump into other areas, but I hope I covered it all. I do have 3 boys, one who's working in the education abroad at Temple, where he graduated from, and I have a graduate student who recently graduated from KU here working in our freshman orientation office, and then my sophomore who's a PR major. I couldn't talk him out of it, and I wouldn't.
Well, thank you for the great intro. Before I start moving on with some of our questions, who are your favorite teams? As you said, you're a big sports fan, so.
Well, I'm a diehard, lifelong Philadelphia Eagles fan. I love the Phillies and baseball. Hockey's interesting, and I'm not even going to get into it, but I I was a Atlanta Flames and then a Hartford Whalers. Those are two extinct teams, and I never really got into the Flyers. I followed the Sixers basketball wise, and college wise, Georgia Bulldogs, and then most of the Mountain West teams. And believe it or not, I think one of the things that keeps me sane is I'm a huge pro wrestling fan, which people, when they hear that, they think that's crazy. But I've been since I'm a kid, and I just, it's like soap opera for crazy people, I guess. So I like it.
So while you were at Lincoln University, could you tell us what like the day-to-day operations of your position were?
Well, it was a starting job, and I'll throw some numbers at it, you guys. I made back in 1988, I made $13,000 a year and got an apartment on campus. So like it literally back then that was pretty good. It amounted to about $18,000, which now if you put it in the calculator, it was a good start. I was able to get out of mom and dad's house, which was good. I was able to get experience. The main part of my job was managing the upper class male dorms, and I had resident advisors who reported to me. I was responsible for making sure things didn't get out of hand, and doing programming. So I did that during the day. At night, I would go over to the Memorial Hall. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the gym there, but I go over to athletics and I'd work in athletics and volunteer at night. Manuel Rivero Hall it was. Not that that matters, but yeah, it was the hardest thing about Lincoln was that I had to be on campus 24/7, and I got 2 3-day weekends off. So it was very lonely. And if you guys have ever been out to Oxford, Pennsylvania, there's nothing there. But the experience at the time was valuable. I took a risk, and sometimes taking a risk to do what you love. And I will kind of come back to this over and over. You guys are all in public relations, and I see one of my old classmates listening in down there, Adam. Hi, Adam. You're all in public relations, and you're all trying to do a profession. But think about, what is it that you all love to do? I love sports. So to be able to take my degree and my education and apply it to what I loved made it. I was working 80-hour weeks. It was too much, but I never felt like 80 hours to me, because I loved what I was doing. I was working nights and weekends. And I would tell you all to ask yourselves that question: what is it you love? And you probably all like public relations, and you're doing what you're good at, but what is it you're passionate about? What do you love? And go after that first. If you love nonprofits and that's where you want to work, you know what, do it. If you want to be in the medical field, if you want to be in entertainment, but you might have to take some risk and chances to do that, right? You might have to, you might have to live with several roommates, and you might have to work for a really low salary. And that's what Lincoln was like for me. It was not an optimal situation. The 7 months, when you're 22 years old, felt like 3-4 years. But it got me to my next step, David. And it was interesting. And because I knew the athletic director at Lincoln was a big fan of mine, he called the athletic director at Delaware State and said, you know what, you really need to look at this guy. He can work in a diverse setting. He's a hard worker, and that was helpful too. So
Awesome, thank you. So then you went to Delaware State, and you want to just tell us a little bit what that was like and what the position entailed and everything?
sure. Delaware State was what I called my grad school experience, because I didn't go to grad school at the time. But again, for those of you who are familiar with college athletics, there's 3 levels. Well, there's more than 3 levels, but their NCAA Division I is the highest level. Delaware State participated in NCAA Division I. They were FCS in football, which was the next level down. But that meant to fund the department, we were a very small Division I school. We had to go get our butts kicked in men's basketball by some of the best schools in the country. So I will say this: I was scared, because I knew that I was coming from, Rowan's a Division III sports program. It's what I was familiar with, and I knew that I would be dealing with these high profile programs as the public relations guy for the, men's basketball team or whatever team I was dealing with. I knew I would be traveling all over the country. I was rarely home. I traveled with football, men's and women's basketball. I traveled with baseball, and I would go to these games. And it was interesting that the bigger the school, you go to a place like Ohio State, and the reporters would come out to the team's shoot around the night before the game. So I had to be there to deal with reporters, to answer questions about the team. Ohio State's press book would be, a monster. Where mine, it was, it was just, it was intimidating. But I found out ultimately reporters just want somebody they could talk to and get information on the team. Reporters were always around. We had beat writers at Delaware State who would be on campus every day at football practice. They would cover the basketball games regularly. So you had to be on top of what was going on in the department to be able to deal with media inquiries and to be able to publicize your student athletes and coaches. It was an experience, to say the least. And then game day would come around and you'd walk out into an arena. Like, I was used to being at SB Gym where we would have a few hundred fans, right? All of a sudden I'm walking out on the day after Christmas in Little Rock, Arkansas, and there's 14,000 fans in the arena. So and we're on statewide TV, we were on ESPN. So I went from, really kind of minor level experience to being thrown into the fire. But I will say this: it's somebody who loves our countryside from here all the way out west and travel, and mostly domestic travel more than anything. I got to see a lot of things that I would have never been able to see. We went to New Mexico, and we went to Texas and Nebraska, and we went to Arkansas and Ohio and Florida all the time. And for a 23-year-old, 24-year-old, it was pretty cool. I missed Glassboro. I always miss Glassboro. I missed being there in the campus and the people, but the experience to be able to go all over the country was great. I got to deal with crisis management, high level reporters staying up all night to put together game notes for it to be so the reporters would have something to talk about on ESPN the next day. So it's an experience that I would never ever trade. Made some really good friends down there. I saw some athletes who are basketball Hall of Famers. I saw Georgetown coach John Thompson, who some of you have probably heard of. Right there next to me when we played Georgetown. We got $60,000 to play them down in Washington. So it was an incredible experience, and I missed some of it when I came back to our level, but it was just at the time it was meant to be, I guess.
Awesome, thank you. And now you're the Vice President of University Relations and Athletics. So how is that position, and what does the day-to-day operations look like?
Well, I think the big difference I've seen in 30 plus years since I've been at Rowan is, I was the guy in the trenches early on, and I was the guy writing the press releases and contacting the reporters and doing the special events and promotions and things like that. And, I was always, and there's probably some of the best advice I could give. I was always very kind of timid about managing people. I never thought, how do you tell somebody, this is your job and you need to do this. And if you're not doing it right, you need to tell them, maybe guide them and show them how to do it right. So I had to become comfortable with that as I grew through the years. I went from, originally at Kutztown at Delaware State, I managed a part 1.5 people. I had a full-time person and a part-time person. Had one person at Kutztown for many years. And then when I took the job as University Relations Director, I suddenly had 10 people working for me. And then when the vice president job came open, I have, like I said, 75 and 10 direct reports. So I really, really had to grow into that and become more comfortable and confident. And I will tell you guys, I learned a lot from people who do it the wrong way. We've all probably had bosses where we're like, that woman or that guy, like, they don't treat people right. If I was in the position, I would do it better. And I truly, I read a lot, I learned a lot, I observed a lot. And I always said, if I ever get the chance, I'm going to try to be firm but fair. So day to day, I spend a lot of times now in meetings. Pre-COVID, I was at a lot of events. Let me say this too. I give all of you credit for what we're going through right now. This, from a professional perspective, from a public relations perspective, I've dealt with a lot of tough situations through the years, that are, and I could get into them if you want me to at some point. Crises. This has combined all of that, and it has been for an extended period. So from a public relations perspective, it's been very hard, especially for higher education. But all of you as students, I recognize, what you're all going through as well. It's been 100 years since we've had a pandemic like this, and I think this is going to make you all stronger. It's going to make us all stronger in the end. You're going to look back someday and say, hey, when I was in college, I had to, learn amidst the pandemic. You had restrictions and virtual learning and things that, gosh, 30 years ago, I couldn't even imagine. But I know it's tough, and it's tough having two college age boys myself. I see, the effect it has on them not being in the environment with their friends and, hi Kitty, and all of the people that, they should be with right now. So, don't be too hard on yourselves during this. And, it will get better. Everything will rebound. And just, keep doing what you're doing, make the most of every day. And, don't look past furthering your education now, or doing what you need to do to make yourself stronger long term. But yeah, day to day, David, a lot of meetings. I spend a lot of times, and I have to say this, especially in the past year, I have 3 external relations directors, marketing, communications, and the web, who report directly to me. And I was just on with them 2 hours ago, trying to determine how we were going to respond to a social media post for a group of students who call themselves activists, who are trying a smear campaign against us. We opened during the COVID last semester. We had some face-to-face experience, but we had students here on campus. That was very tough. So during the COVID, I've spent the majority of my time dealing with public relations issues, and I would say crisis communications during the social unrest over the summer. But when things were normal, I spent a lot of time in face-to-face meetings, at events on campus, at athletic events, at receptions at the president's house, because being on the cabinet, one of 4 or 5 vice presidents, you're asked to be at places an awful lot. So, but I'm, constantly on email, I'm constantly on text, I'm constantly responding to something, or trying to put out some fire, or giving some advice somewhere. Today, we're interviewing for a new athletic director, so I was in interviews for 3 hours with today's candidate. I had a division directors meeting. Like I said, I met with external relations directors, which I do every week, to talk about our PR, marketing, social media, and web issues. So it's providing a lot of advice and guidance, but I'm still a hands-on person. And, I was on my couch last night writing the response to the social media post. I get right in the trenches still, and maybe I should be delegating a little bit more, but I think everybody is really tired from what we've been battling for the past year. So.
Thank you. And then I just have one more question, and then I'm going to open it up for the general members if they have any questions. you have any suggestions or advice for us getting ready to enter the field of public relations, with all your experience and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I remember very well sitting in your seats 32, 33 years ago and wondering, where I'm going to be when I'm 30, 40, 50. Now I'm 54 years old. And, the world is your oyster, as they say. There's a lot of possibilities out there. But and there's a lot of uncertainty, and I get it. I mean, it's one of the hardest things I ever remember going through was graduating and figuring out, okay, what do I do next? What's my next job going to be? But the training that you get at Rowan, it's as we know, it's a great communications and a great school for public relations. You guys made the right choice with that. And you're doing the right thing by being involved with PRSSA. But get involved with clubs and organizations for sure that that kind of hit you in the heart, that are that you're really interested in. Your internship, I would say, and again, I think that's still the case because I work with students here at Kutztown all the time. I think your internship is super important, that you do an internship. Take it for as many credits, one or more, that you can, and get experience and go in there, work hard, do what you're asked to do, build a portfolio, um, make connections. And I think that will ultimately give you the springboard to go to wherever you need to go next. Maybe it's a graduate assistantship, maybe it's an entry level job somewhere, maybe it's a paid internship. Maybe you'll take an internship over the summer that doesn't pay while you're working a part-time job. But I think ultimately what you do now is super important to kind of getting you off in the right direction. Like I said, I would never discount. I would ask you all, think about a master's degree, and think about, I know you have it there at Rowan in public relations. I have friends who have the degree. They didn't have it. I don't think they had it when I was there. I could be wrong, but I wouldn't, hey, whether you get it from Rowan or somewhere else, I would not look past that, because no one could ever take that away from you, right? Someday you may need I needed a master's degree for this job. Now I'm in higher ed. And then, I guess my other advice would be, be true to yourself, work hard, try to see, there's a lot of politics out there in the real world. I've always tried to stay out of them, and I've tried to kind of, the proof with me has always been in my performance. I really, like, politics drive me nuts, and I think my directors sort of know that I'm a straight shooter, and I you don't need to bring me presents, and just do your job, and you know what, I'll pat you on the back and try to be a servant leader, and constantly, I know I can't do it by myself. I have a great team, and I'm constantly touting them for the success that we have. So, remember, you can't do it all alone either. That you need to, life's a journey, but you need others to help you through. So don't look past that, and look. Be sure to thank people, and I will say this: while I still tell my PR staff, you know what? Get on the phone, go see the person in person. Everybody likes to do emails. They like to text. They like to. I cannot. I still think face to face is valuable. Maybe I'm old school, Dr. Fitzgerald. Maybe I'm old school. I don't know. I hope you. I still think, you know what? Let's go out and have a cup of coffee. Let's talk. I think you get a lot from that face to face interaction. Don't be afraid to pick up. I think it'll get you the edge. And to me, it's big. Send a thank you note when you go on an interview, a handwritten thank you note. Those are just things that, maybe it's old school, and an email's not horrible, but I think those personal touches through life are important. So
Awesome. Thank you. I actually, I've decided to pursue my master's next year, so we'll see where that goes. But thank you for answering my questions and everything. So if anybody else has any questions they'd like to ask, we have like 20 minutes left. Don't hesitate, just go for it.
Hi, so I actually have a question. So I intern in our university relations department. And so obviously, like we've done a lot of crisis communication over the past year for multiple reasons, not just COVID related. What is like your biggest piece of advice dealing with crisis? And like, if you want to talk about any crises you've had to handle, that'd be really cool too.
Sure. Well, Grace, say hi to Mr. Cardona and Barbara for me. I know them both. I know Barbara probably better of the two. I think it's a tough job, and I know it's it's as students a lot of times you'll on the outside you're looking, what the heck are they doing? Why are they doing this? But it's tough. Being in it myself. There's a lot of audiences and a lot of publics that you have to deal with. So this was taught to me at Glassboro, at Rowan, and it was to be proactive in crisis situations. Be on the A side, be out in front of the situation. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. It's not social media has changed the game, Grace, in a lot of ways, in the sense that it's 24/7 now, and you wake up in the morning and there's something there on social media, you're going, oh my gosh, it is exhausting. And there's a lot of universities now that have somebody or one or more people who specialize in social media. I don't. We tag team it, so that makes it difficult. But the situation today, as I saw, there's this activist group we have is they're putting a smear campaign out against us. They said, DM, direct message us your anonymous complaints about Kutztown and ways you've been treated poorly. And so they got a long testimonial of a student, which was the longest run-on sentence I've ever seen. But she claimed she was through a ton of issues here at the university, including rape, including she attempted suicide. She was mistreated by police officers. There were a lot of, we haven't been able to identify her as an actual student, although, it's one of those situations where there were instances that occurred similar to hers in the past, but some of the statements she made are false, because there's like first of all, we would investigate a situation like that. She says that the case was thrown out, but only the DA or the victim can decline prosecution. So we were picking out things throughout it, and I sat there and I looked at it. They had 26 likes, and I said, do we want to engage? Do we want to get legal involved, stating that there's some defamation here? Probably not. That's it. But I continued to monitor it, and I wrote a response, but I had to go through legal, had to meet with the president this morning. Needless to say, by the time it got to 100, we had that threshold point where we said, we are going to post a response if it gets to a certain point. Now, this group, it didn't matter with them. They were going to not like whatever answer we gave, because their intent is to try to smear us in any way they possibly can. But I tried. I felt like we needed to try to have a response to something like that, which we'll often do. There are times when we don't respond, where it's there's a complaint about snow shoveling, for example, that may be unwarranted. But we're pretty good about social listening and giving responses wherever we can. Bigger crises I've dealt with, we had one here in November. Well, let me go back. 2007, my first day on the job, they terminated my boss because he said things in the media that he should not have said. And they looked at me and they said, Matt, you're now in charge. And this was about 2 hours after we had a student who was murdered in the borough walking back from a party the night before. So as Philadelphia media converged on campus, I was suddenly in charge. And I was already behind the 8 ball. Didn't have the team with me that I needed at the time. It was tough. It was one of the toughest things that I had to deal with. A semester later, we have a faculty union here. They tried to pursue a vote of no confidence in our president. It was like a civil war. Our faculty went on strike in 2016. They lined all up and down Main Street. The whole state system did. But I slept in my office that night, and the minute the strike started, it was, you're dealing with parents upset, students who were upset. During the COVID, like I said, this stretch has been incredible. The social unrest we had over the summer, just trying to navigate through COVID as a campus has been incredibly tough. But then to top that all off, I got a call. I was getting ready to watch Thursday night football 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, and I got a call from our chief of police that, Matt, we have a dead body in our residence halls. And we didn't know at the time whether she was murdered, just didn't know. So I, through I have a tie and a shirt here in the office, but I raced to campus, and I spent most of the night with the state police as they investigated. I mean, the hardest thing for me after leaving sports was dealing with the violence, and I think that we often, and I know that you all see it at Rowan at times, students, they get in fights, or there's some kind of assault that happens on those things. Are student on student crimes are very, very, very hard to deal with. Not so much from a PR standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. And if you're working with police, if you're working with situations where you're going to be in crises a lot, it's hard, but you have to develop a thicker skin. I hate to say it, but I struggled for, gosh, probably 3 years. I mean, literally burnt out by probably 3 years into doing the job, because we grew from 8,000 students to about 10,700, not nearly where Rowan is now, but it was too big for this campus and town. And I was constantly putting out fires. And it was mostly sexual assaults and, physical violence. And the situation I told you about downtown. We had a student, dragged across a parking lot by her boyfriend, who took off. We couldn't find him. And I was in the actual investigation room with the state police with the pictures up, and it was rough. It just was not stuff I was used to seeing on a regular basis. And when you deal with a lot of negativity, it gets tough. So I'm tougher for it 10 years later, but I'll never say that I like dealing with anything that had, when a student or employee gets injured, or really sick or dies or anything. But it's part of the job too. So you got to think about that. What is it? Again, I tell you, you got to do what you love. I love sports, and there were times where I really regretted leaving it because of the subjects I was dealing with.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. So if anybody has a question, go for it.
Who was your favorite Rowan professor? Oh, go ahead, Danessa.
Oh, no, I like that question. We can answer that one first.
My favorite Rowan professor was a guy by the name of Ben Resnick. Mm-hmm. He taught journalism. I had journalism 1 with him. He was the department chair at the time, and that was such a valuable class. I still have my AP style guide. Right, it's right over here. I'm not at my desk right now. I have my AP style guide. I have my Strunk and White Elements of Style, and I have the AP book for what am I thinking?
APA?
No, not APA, but AP grammar, apostrophes, and all that stuff. I can't think of the name of it right off the top of my head, but all stuff's still sitting right here on my desk. I love Ben Resnick. trying to think. The TV professors were they were also advisors to the radio station, so I was pretty close with them. But
Did you
yeah.
have Ned Eckhart and
I
Mike
remember Ned.
Donovan?
I had Mike for intro to broadcasting. And my wife, knew all of them very well because she was in that major.
They've all retired and left me.
Wow, time flies. Yeah, but
I know.
and I had Ed Moore for a night class for advanced PR writing.
Yep. He's
And
actually still teaching for us. He teaches
Yep.
school PR in the grad program.
Yeah, the writing classes were invaluable, and the PR planning class was good. I remember having PR planning. I had Mr. Fulginiti for case studies and PR planning, and he was tough. I remember him being a tough professor. Yeah, he held us accountable. So
We're still teaching his stuff, so he was a good guy.
oh, absolutely.
So my question was answered. So, but thank you so much for coming on to talk with us. I really enjoyed everything that you shared. So thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Vanessa. I wish you all the best of luck. Still, I still bleed brown and gold, even though I've been maroon and gold for the past 29 years. It's hard to believe. But yeah, I love Glassboro, and I wish you all the best. Go Profs.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one final announcement for everyone that's joining us. If you haven't left your email in the chat, please do. I would like to share an internship opportunity with you guys. If anyone's interested, stay on. If maybe you already have an internship, feel free to log out. A professor at Rowan University is looking for virtual interns 2 to 3 to help with branding his podcast for a new company that he started. He's looking for someone to reach out to members of the media, gain him guests on his podcast, and also work on social media. So if you're looking for an internship opportunity, send me an email. I'll leave my email again. So thank you guys.
Who is it, Vanessa?
They sent me Matt Zinman.
Yeah, well, Matt, he doesn't work for us. He runs virtual internships. He's good. He's a good guy, but he doesn't work at Rowan.
Okay, he had a Rowan student reach out to me.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yes.
No, he just helped us do that virtual internship PowerPoint that we did and YouTube.
Perfect.
He's a good guy. I studied for my APR with him.
Well, so they are looking for interns. So if anyone's interested, I will leave my email again because it's already at the top. So thank you everyone for jumping on.